So this video will look at paper 2 question 4, comparing viewpoints between the two sources. So you might see it as viewpoints or opinions. The point is still the same. How does the writer feel about the subject they were talking about? This is 16 marks, so roughly 20 minutes to answer this question. First of all, again, as always, make sure you have a good understanding of the question itself. So you must look at both sources. Any information in both sources, when it says whole of the source, it doesn't literally mean everything in it, but any relevant information anywhere in it will be a valid response. Make sure you've understood the question. We're looking for two specific things: the content of the question, what you are focusing on, and also whether it's similar or different that you're looking for. So for this one, compare how the writers convey their similar perspectives on cycling in the city. So again, we're looking for similar here, similar perspectives. So logic dictates if the perspective of opinion or viewpoint of source A is positive, then of course it will be positive as well on cycling in the city in source B. If it's differences we're looking for and it's positive in source A, clearly, again, logic will dictate that we're looking for a negative response in source B. So please make sure you understand what to look for in the question. Are you looking for similarities or differences? And then secondly, about what, which is the end of the question. In this case, cycling in the city. Once you've understood the question, you can start going back through the texts and finding your answers. Now, you would have read the text a few times by now, so you can look at it and really think about what's the writer's opinion. However, you should be doing that in your initial reading when you started the exam, when you're reading the inserts, because when you're reading the inserts, you're looking for a good understanding of the subject and a good understanding of the opinion of the writers on those subjects. So, of course, when we get to question 4, it shouldn't be new information for you. You should understand that you're looking for a comparison of the opinions that you should already know what they are. They're happy, they're sad, they're trusting, they are dubious and scared, they're horrified, they're really, really enthusiastic. What is the writer's opinion of the subject that they are talking about? The next thing you need to look at is think about if those opinions change. Some of the sources that we've seen in the past, from the past papers, will start off positive and end up negative, or start negative and end up positive. If you could recognize those changes, of course, you're going to be rewarded with a lot more marks in the final outcome, should you explain it fully, of course. So look for the opinions in the text and see if they change slightly, if they become negative to positive or positive to negative as you go through. If we look at a level 3 clear and relevant response, where we hit all of our mark scheme here using Peter, point, evidence, technique, explain, reader. We've got in here a color-coded response which compares. We've got writer's methods, which is language and structural features. And then we've got an understanding of the similar ideas or perspectives. So a good understanding of the opinions in the text of the two writers. So in source A, Walker believes the car drivers make cycling more dangerous than it should be. There's our point. He addresses the drivers directly. There's our method, our direct address. And then our quote, remember that these are human beings. And uses emotive words, so again our technique, a writer's method, such as, quote, flesh and bone, to persuade readers to understand that cyclists are real people who can get hurt, which again is our explanation in our own words. There is a similar perspective in source B, that the cyclist is, quote, prey to the Victorian cab drivers. Again, that's our point. That's our summary of the perspective of the writer of source B. But whereas Walker uses a serious tone, the writer in source B uses a humorous tone by stating that her life would be, quote, nicer if they didn't try to kill her. So again, comparing ideas. Both have a similar viewpoint, but one takes a very harsh tone, the other one takes a more tongue-in-cheek, humorous tone about it. Then we've got our methods and our explanations that follow. The effect of using humor is that the writer comes across as more confident than Walker being the writer of source A, because she makes a joke out of the dangers of cycling in traffic. A close comparison of the two texts and the writer's subject and opinion of the two texts. If you can start looking at using the Peter method, you will see your mark elevated because of it. So How to answer this question. Start off with a brief overview of both writers' opinions in the sources. What are the sources about? How does the writer feel about it? Then you can go into your point evidence technique, explain reader paragraphs, your Peter paragraphs, and compare. So your point should be clear and relevant opinion from source A, lots of quotes to back yourself up, and then elevate your mark by getting in a writer's method or a technique, a language and or a structural feature, and look at those tones, look at those metaphors, similes, personifications, etc. Look at your techniques and terminologies in your quotes. That's where you are looking for that technique in the quotes that you've already chosen. Your overriding skill, of course, is explanations. We don't need to know the sources. We need to know what you think of the sources. You are the unknown element in the exam. What you think matters. So you explain why that word or those features have been used, why the writer has that opinion in the text. And how you do that is obviously a close linking back to the story overall that you've read. And make sure you're explaining the effect on the reader, and that's no generic statements about making the reader want to read on or intriguing readers. This is about you. It's your exam. Your opinions count. We need to know what you think in your own words. And in doing so, make sure that, again, that you compare to source B and you do your Peter paragraph again. Don't forget your levels. Level 3, clear and relevant. A clear and use of opinions and terminologies and explanations of the subjects and the opinions within those subjects in comparison. And then level 4, question it. What's the moral of the story? What's the purpose of it? Be perceptive. The deeper you get into your answers and really think about abstract concepts and themes and ideas that the writer is exploring in their work, the higher your mark will be. So for question 4, make sure that you're comparing both texts, 16 marks, 20 minutes. What's the writer's opinion? Once you've found them, compare them, write them up in Peter, and make sure that your answer is carefully planned, well thought out, a confident response that hits your mark scheme.